Hey everyone, while the MCU multiverse saga has had its ups and downs, I can say with confidence that Deadpool and Wolverine is the most anticipated film this month. So, with the past and present of Marvel reuniting for its future, I thought I would take a look at their first and most infamous theatrical film adaptation, so let's open up 1986's Howard the Duck. Much like other divisive comic adaptations I've dealt with, it had quite disruptive production. Though the comic by Val Mayerick and late Steve Gerber may not be the biggest in Marvel canon, to its credit, the comic had quite the bizarre yet fascinating sense of humor. The social satire, existential stories, and often foul-billed title character would be right at home in this day and age. Incredibly, apart from a handful of names and concepts, both the comic and the movie are almost completely different. Much disappointment of both fans and to Gerber. Not helping matters is that would Huck and Gloria Katz Temple of Doom fame were not the first director and writer attached to the project. At one point, the film was actually going to be animated, or at least a live-action animated hybrid like Roger Rabbit was, but Universal desperately needed a big release for that summer. That's not even getting the actual filming process, which I will get into more over the course of this review. Let's just say that like Star Wars, Indiana Jones were challenged to unwrite for producer George Lucas, then bringing this literal odd duck to theaters as a first ever theatrical Marvel comic adaptation was going to be as insane to pull off as it is to watch. Let's stop delaying the inevitable and get started. But on the parallel planet of Duck World, where right off we have two principal problems we shall discuss before we get into this further. The first elephant bird in the room is Howard himself, with Chip Zen providing the voice and Ed Gale's Child's Play fame as the main body double. There's definitely a reason why most promos and posters, including the one I chose for the thumbnail, didn't show it in full. Even George himself would later admit their limitations, saying with the effect that it was obviously a man in a duck suit, no really other way around it. Doubly so that one of the animatronics they had built broke open the first take, another burst into flames. The second is the odd clash in Agent Howard's apartment set. On one hand, had the first of many duck wordplay gags, a poster of Splash Dance, and Bree's Lost Stork, to name a couple. On the other, you have Howard opening a beer, lighting up a cigar, and ogling a scantily clad centerfold in Play Duck. As the first ever theatrical Marvel adaptation, there was no real template to follow for telling target audience. More recent ones would argue my pitch would be somewhere between the Guardians of the Galaxy for existentialism and Deadpool for the most self-awareness and profane humor. Though not in terms of gunplay or swearing, my template for Howard being the only one who knows the story he's in is basically Wade Wilson of Hero Duck. Due to an experimental machine, Howard is pulled from Duck World through space, past message for his neighbors, including the infamous topless duck, enjoying herself in the bath. Thus, from an age where PG meant that parental guidance not merely suggested but highly recommended. Won't be the only time it happens, but that alone raises numerous theological and biological questions that don't fully answer. At the risk of dwelling on this too much, I'll simply dramatize first reaction I watched the movie as a kid. I'm 8 years old, and what is this? As Howard continues being pulled through space, the narration of Richard Kiley exposits about the film's premise will get a title card, with Howard crash landing to Cleveland, Ohio. Had a feeling they were going the Brucey Sky route. Howard ends up crossing paths with Beverly Swizzler, who is a rock musician rather than supermodel like in the comic. Beverly is played with Leah Thompson. I don't think this movie is the only reason why Elizabeth Shue replaced her in Back to the Future, but it did not help. As Howard takes a fighting stance against two muggers, one of the lines is something that wouldn't surprise me if it came during the table read, then put in the shooting script. Been doing too much toot. Beverly decides to take Howard in for the night, and in more ways than one, she takes the fact that she's talking with the duck shockingly well. Just seeing his duck-themed cash, credit cards, and rubber jackets, she takes him to see an expert in Natural History Museum the next day. Phil Blumbert, nice to have that in-joke going, played by Tim Robbins in one of his first film roles. Hey, everyone starts somewhere. It turns out he's actually a janitor, however. Cheesy dialogue aside, the space outside the museum was one of multiple scenes that was entirely reshot after the exchange with the animatronics and previous child body double, Jordan Prentice. Now comes the part that Gerber said was close to how he wrote the comic. Howard getting a work order from Cora May, an unemployment officer played by the late Virginia Keepers, Florence from Ferris Bueller. He's sent to a love spa called Hot Tub Fever, run by a loudmouth played by Sheldon Felder. Howard naturally quits and dunks on him more than one, and given what's happened when this movie came out, I don't blame him. As the locals notice, and I quote, "That's a duck, man." Howard walks past the most ironic wall of television you can see, showing hunting shows, Daffy Duck cartoons, how much did they pay Warner Brothers for that, and Duckaroni box dinners. Don't remember that San Francisco treat. Howard goes to see Beverly and her very 80s band, Cherry Bomb. They're being withheld their money and locked to a CD contract by Ginger, played by Tommy Swerdlow. There's accomplice Richie, played by Ferris Bueller alumnus Richard Edson. Figures. He's not joyriding in the antique Ferrari, he's helping run shady gigs. Howard quickly grows tired of Ginger and Richie's comments towards the band. As he downs a drink and lights a cigar, off his bill no less, he demands they be paid and their contract revoked. Ginger responds by sliding him across the bar. Undeterred, Howard gets back up, lays into Richie, and Ginger finally agrees when Howard pins his earring to the bar and threatens to pierce the other one. None of this bothers the barkeep, played by Thomas Dolby of all people. Dolby also helped Cherry Bomb come together. How about that? Getting their money back and sending Ginger packing, Phil arrives with beer and pizza, greeting Howard the Quack. The man who later appeared in acclaimed films as Mr. Riven's Shawshank Redemption also did, well, this. Like I said, if one starts somewhere, it's also dating Beverly's bandmate, because why not? Her name is Ronette, played by Liz Segal. Back at Beverly's place, she's again shockingly open to the idea of a duck as manager and more. The sheer mechanics of it are mind-boggling, not just how the crew got Howard's feathers to rise on top of his head. Halfway through this thing, roughly, Phil arrives with the scientists who are experimenting with the laser that brought Howard to Earth. Carter, played by Miles Chapon, and Dr. Walter Jennings, played by Jeffrey Jones. Yes, I'm well aware why he hasn't been in movies lately, and we'll get to that in a bit. Turns out the lab was looking for the key to interdimensional travel, and they found it. They agree to send Howard home, but much like everything else I've mentioned so far and we'll discuss, things don't go as planned. There's another explosion, and that brings in something else, something worse. Gaudy draws aside, this bit where the guards disrobe Howard is one of the few shots with a wholly animatronic duck left in. While other on-set effects from the decade still hold up even today, this one, not so much. Beverly and Jenny escape from the lab, with Jenny acting as getaway driver. Howard has now become the vessel for the Dark Overlord. As he plans next move, they stop at Joe Roma's Cajun Sushi. Well, I've seen how weirder fusion cuisine. Also, given Jeffrey Jones now functionally blackballed from the industry for inappropriate behavior and possessing illicit material, him being a vessel of evil isn't a stretch anymore. The bit with him lamenting the waitstaff taking back his eggs is pretty funny, though. Actually, making a mess of the place, the Dark Overlord reclaims the code key and takes Beverly hostage, forcing Howard to form a reluctant alliance with Phil to stop him. All this from a routine experiment. Who knew? We've seen them back to the lab. We get what's arguably the best parts, the ultralight sequence. It took a sizable chunk of the shooting schedule to get it done, an age before the volume. For all the dated effects in the movie, fellow Lucasfilm production Labyrinth came out the same year and still holds up on a regular wall today. It actually looks solid. Howard even buzzes some hunters, one of whom might be named Wilhelm based on a scream. After a rough landing, Howard and Phil make it back to the lab. Turns to the music score, which is made by John Barry, whose credits include the likes of Born Free and various James Bond movies. As more Dark Overlords are targeted by the laser, Beverly remarks he's in a bad mood. Beverly, you have a gift for understatement. His true form awakens via stop-motion puppetry by none other than Phil Tippett. It was after Yoda, but before the dinosaur in Jurassic Park, so there you go. The scene where Howard fights the Dark Overlord with a truck-mounted laser was, as you can guess, a nightmare to film. As one of the scenes where the duck suit caught fire, with Jordan Prentice inside it, states how to snuff it out. As more Dark Overlords trying to come to Earth, Howard's forced to destroy the laser and with it his way back home. Basically what Thor did at the Bride Falls 25 years later. Howard even pranks Phil and Beverly as we get a closing scene of a concert with Howard's new manager, Cherry Bomb. Turns out the music was produced by none other than George S. Clinton of Parliament Funkadelic fame. How about that? Despite people pre-release expressing interest in a sequel, that was never going to happen after the reviews and ticket sales came in. It was also a contributing factor to Lucas selling his stake in the then newly formed Pixar. Steve Jobs would be a majority stockholder for much of his life. So, in a way, most of them Howard might not have Buzz Lightyear, Mr. Incredible, and the most of them Inside Out, among many others. The film went down as an infamous quote-unquote commercial failure, making just $16 million at the box office on a $38 million budget. Reportedly, executives who previously advocated the movie got into a fight over who gave the green light to it. Opening weekend, it was gutted by the third weekend of Aliens and new release Friday the 13th, Jason Lives. Ranking, not making this up, below a re-release of the infamous Song of the South on the annual United States chart. It took 12 years to even attempt on the theatrical Marvel adaptation, but that's a matter of another day. In spite of, or even because of this movie's infamy, it has garnered something of a cult following. Even I find it a fascinating foul-up in a decade full of them. As I said before, if it's between a bad movie that's boring and one that's a flaming train wreck, I'll always choose the latter. It's one where I don't want to look, yet I can't look away for 112 minutes. Given the character's recurring cameos in the MCU, I am not against the idea of a reboot, even for streaming. On top of surviving actors from the original cameoing, my first choice for director is Edgar Wright, with Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Beverly. Hey, it's obviously not a great film, but I had a lot of fun roasting this stuck. Final rating, 2 stars out of 4. See you all soon with my look at Deadpool and Wolverine, so take care everyone.